好，现在我们欢迎这个Mike。
As our world becomes increasingly complex, rapidly growing cities face unprecedented new challenges. Rio de Janeiro, while known for its rich culture, active lifestyles, and stunning natural beauty, is also burdened with crime, aging infrastructure, and natural disasters. Already a burgeoning city of 6 million, Rio now prepares for millions more as they get ready to host the 2014 World Cup and the 2016 Olympics. Like other forward-thinking cities, Rio realized it was in need of a new city operations plan to improve emergency response coordination, manage increased traffic, and improve services for citizens. Rio turned to IBM to create a smarter city by integrating more than 30 agencies into one centralized command center. The new Smarter City system gathers data from sectors across city operations, making it easy for security officials and crisis managers to monitor and respond to problems quickly. Data from sensors and video feeds create real-time maps and graphs, working to predict problems and counteract them. Weather monitoring systems forecast heavy rains with state-of-the-art accuracy, giving city officials the ability to anticipate floods and mudslides, alert the public, and send emergency support. The Smarter City system has improved emergency response time by 30%, making Rio a safer city. The result is a visionary city, equipped to react, predict, and plan for current and future events. But this is just the beginning. Rio's Smarter City transformation is set to expand to transportation, public works, and utilities. Every city, large or small, has its own unique challenges. Working with forward-thinking cities like Rio and more than 2,000 other Smarter Cities projects around the world, IBM is able to help make cities smarter.
Mr. Chairman, Deputy Magistrate, Secretary General, Professor, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me here today. I represent IBM and the hundreds of professionals that help myself and my Taiwanese colleagues to talk to you about smart cities and emergency management. Rio looks familiar. City of 8 million people. Large mountains, heavy rainfall. What we see around us today is natural disasters. And funny, when I heard Minister Lee talk about it today, the World Bank had said that Taiwan was one of the most vulnerable places on the planet from natural disasters. 73% of Taiwan is exposed to over 3 or more natural disaster threats. But Taiwan is in the top 10% of city or world economies. So clearly what you're doing here today is very right. Because even with the 20 typhoons that happen every year, you can still keep the economic losses to a minimum and still remain in the top 10%. So I'm going to show you a little bit of how IBM thinks in emergency management. And I think you'll notice that some of the ideas that came from our panelists here are in my presentation. Of course, I talk about the 4 Ps. Of course, product, but more importantly, process. And also, you have to look at people. And I think the toughest one, the final P, political will. Always difficult to get political will on your side. So what we do here is, why do we get emergency management? Rio today was about to celebrate with a large party 100 days away from the World Cup. They cancelled the party because 240 people died yesterday in an emergency. We cannot let our guard down. We look around and we see things happening around Asia Pacific region. I was in Australia last week talking with the emergency management teams on firefighting, bushfighting. Today the same teams are now managing a mega storm coming into New South Wales. Again, we have to have systems that can help us. So we look to try to leverage information, be it from websites, sensors, video, to anticipate the problem. The best problem you can have is one that you know that's coming. The worst problem you can have is one that has arrived without any warning. And sometimes you have to deal with that in the case of earthquakes. But you have to coordinate your resources. Nobody has infinite resources. So when we work with our customers and our clients, we talk about these. We talk about natural principles and how they can be formed into peak responses. And there is no such thing as a perfect emergency. You can start in non-emergency management, which is heavy rains. And if the rains continue, like in Brazil, you can get mudslides. And from there, the mudslides can be fatal. And you can go to emergency management. And even in some cases, you can go to crisis management. Crisis management is when you cannot continue to manage the situation. And you have to reach out for additional help, maybe international help. This happened in New Orleans, but we saw with the Japanese also. They had to reach out for international help. So the ability to be able to manage up and down this response curve is key to your strategy in emergency management. When should I move from incident to emergency? When should I move back down? How can I tell my politicians, my commanders, my population what event I'm in? So we think about this, that we know emergency management systems have to be able to respond to very, very high level, even to low level. And there has been in the last few years an evolvement of emergency management, and the professor talked about this with the connection of data. We look at best efforts, maybe 20 years ago, where people used pens and paper. Actually, that isn't 20 years ago. That's Japan. After the Japanese government lost control of Fukushima, they called the military in, but the military weren't prepared because they never thought they would take over an emergency from the government. And they did their best possible attempt at fixing, which was paper intensive. We see many countries around the world using fusion centers, where they bring everything together. But when the problem gets quite large, you still have to communicate through word of mouth, and that can be problematic. Also, people can only work maybe maximum 18 hours and they need relief. So fusion centers can have problems in maintaining efficiency over many, many hours and many, many problems. What we at IBM has looked at is intelligent operations, like in Rio, and eventually analytical operations. And you might say that is a scary thought, but it's not. Today, a few days ago, I flew to Asia on a 500-ton plane at 800 kilometers an hour, with 500 people on board. And the only thing I had to worry about was the selection of movies I was going to take. We have let technology help us. There are still 2 people on the front of the plane called captains, and they own the plane, they're responsible for it. But a lot of the mundane issues have been handled at a different level. We see this in emergency management, where we can understand significant events, understand what is the right thing to do. And we've worked that in Rio de Janeiro. I've put that into the Philippines and in Davos. And we constantly get better. But we work with the academia people of the world, the government of the world, the experts of the world, and they tell us this is the process we could improve upon. So that's how we bring our product to process, to people, to politicians. And then eventually you will see that we'll go into advanced analytics, and this has happened in manufacturing, in banking, in air travel. It will happen in emergency management. So as you think about your systems, you have to think about what technology will help me in the future. The iPhone didn't exist 5 years ago. Twitter didn't exist 5 years ago. Facebook didn't exist 5 years ago. Video analytics didn't exist 5 years ago. Today, these are becoming systems that help us run our cities. So again, we look at these and say, well, how can they help us in emergency management? How can we extract information and understand what's going on? We do that with our people around the world, experts around the world that we work together with. So an example of that, this is one of our command centers, and you can see we use video analytics, citizen collaboration, which we talked about, the ability to talk with large-scale communities, sensors, events. Weather is a big one. IBM research has developed the most advanced weather prediction system in the world. And we use it in many places. We use it in Brazil, but we also use it in New York. And funny, what we use in New York is to do with snow. Where will the snow fall? Where should we send these snow trucks, the snow plows first, to move the snow? So therefore, we're looking at the rush hour into New York City, where the snow is going to fall, and where the trucks should be. And that means that the New York City's residents and New York City's working population can move freely, and the snow and the roads can remain open. But that can happen like in Rio de Janeiro, where it's landslides, or in Taiwan, where it's roads rock slides on roads. Where can we put our best resources? So we're very proud of solutions like this, but we only come up with solutions like this because we work with great people. We work with people who tell us, this is what affects my environment. This is my problems. So you heard me when I talk through, I don't talk about technology or products. I talk about what can we do? How can we make your city safer? How can we make your city faster? How can we make your city cheaper? How can we make your city smarter? And as you've seen with some of my colleagues today, where Amy Chen talked about standard operation procedures, what we like to call intelligent response. They understand what the environment is doing, and then they can make comments, just like you would in an autopilot. It understands where the fuel is in the wings, and it'll balance those two wings, without really telling the pilot. This kind of thinking is not alien to emergency management. In fact, it's the way emergency management will continue to evolve. But we also could then say, how do we manage this? We manage this, again, as an open discussion, because we're among friends. We use a protocol called CAP, Common Alerting Protocol. I love this, because it makes the data problem, Professor, that you talked about, how can we talk with unstructured data? You can convert event data, weather data, video data, pothole broken, bridge down, fire, air evacuation, into an open standard. And you can very easily share it among different agencies and among yourself. In fact, you can share this among countries. Australia is 100% based on CAP. So should a country like Taiwan, like Hong Kong or Japan, ever have an incident where it needs to look for international assistance, CAP protocol will allow different emergency management systems to talk to each other without any issue of language translation required. It talks at a very specific geospatial and event level. And again, it talks to a lot of the emergency services in the United States. So again, when you're looking at evolving your solutions, think about how can I help and how can I be helped? What systems can I use? So again, IBM looks at that, and we talk, because I'm fortunate in a worldwide role, I talk with emergency management folks in the United States, in Australia. I was in Jordan, Amman, talking with the Syrian problem. As 100,000 Syrians cross the border, how could we help? We talk with other folks in the UK and Ireland, mainly with snow. They're experiencing a massive snowstorm as we speak. So clearly the business of emergency management unfortunately won't go away. And our job as leaders is to say, well, how can we help? How can we prevent? What can we do to ensure our people are safe? And when we do have to respond, can we respond the most intelligent way? That we can shelter, that we can protect. So a quick example of how this works is that if I had a system which my hydrant was broken, and I have a fire, so therefore I didn't have water pressure, my Intelligent Operations Center can spot no water plus a fire, and they very quickly say they are correlated together. So before I send a fire truck, I will tell the fire truck to bring a water truck. So what I've done is leveraged information, anticipated a problem, and coordinated a resource. And that is being smart. Thank you very much.